Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hello.
Today we're tackling something lots of ambitious people think about, setting up shop in Hong Kong.
That's right. Specifically, a limited company. What does it actually take?
Exactly. We're digging into the details using a service and fees document from Prepdy Limited. They're a licensed trust or company service provider over there. So if you've ever considered expanding or maybe starting something totally new in, a really vibrant international place like Hong Kong, this deep dive is for you.
Yeah, our mission here is basically to cut through all the jargon, all the complexity.
Right.
We want you to finish this with a really clear picture of the whole process, the costs, what you need to do ongoingly.
Yeah.
But without feeling like you've just read a law book.
Definitely not. And look, here's something fascinating right off the bat. It doesn't actually matter where you're from.
No, that's a big one.
Anyone, any nationality can be a shareholder or a director. That just blows the doors open, doesn't it?
It really does. A lot of possibilities there.
Okay, so let's get into it. What are the absolute basics, the must-haves to even, get the ball rolling?
Well, the initial hurdles are surprisingly manageable, actually.
Okay.
You need minimum one shareholder, minimum one director, and like you just said, nationality. Not an issue.
Right.
But critically, you must appoint a company secretary. This is mandatory in Hong Kong. Prepdy can handle this role.
And that's not just ticking a box, is it?
Not at all. The company secretary is key for compliance. They make sure you're following Hong Kong's company's ordinance, which can be, let's say, intricate. It saves potential headaches, fines, you name it.
Okay, what else?
The company name, obviously. If it's English, it has to end with limited.
Yeah.
If it's Chinese, it ends with. Using both is generally a good idea.
Recommended.
Highly recommended, yeah. And finally, you need a registered address in Hong Kong. Again, that's something Prepdy can provide.
So the basics seem covered. Now the big question, money. The document mentions this Prepdy company formation package, HK $8,000. What's actually in that package?
Okay, so that HK $8,000 is meant to cover pretty much everything for the initial setup.
Right.
First up, it bundles in all the necessary government fees. That comes to HK $3,745 total.
Oh, okay, so a chunk goes straight to the government.
Exactly. That breaks down into HK $1,280 for the company registration itself, HK $265 for filing the incorporation form, and then HK $2,200 for the business registration fee.
Got it. So almost half is just mandatory government charges. What about the rest of that $8,000?
So the next piece is HK $1,800.
Yeah.
That's for Prepdy actually preparing and submitting all the incorporation documents.
Ah, the paperwork part.
Yeah, things like drafting the Articles of Association, that's a crucial document, and handling all the back and forth with the government departments.
Okay.
And this part also includes something they call the company green box.
Company green box. Sounds intriguing. Physical.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just digital files. There's a tangible element here. Inside this box, you get essential physical things like company stamps around one and a signature one.
Yeah.
You get 6 printed copies of those Articles of Association we mentioned, a share certificate book, and a statutory record book. It makes it feel quite official.
Yeah, a physical box of official stuff definitely makes it feel real.
What else is in there? Any key certificates?
Oh, yeah. The really important ones. Your certificate of incorporation proof. The company exists. And the business registration certificate proof you're registered to do business.
The big ones.
Absolutely. Plus, it includes the minutes from the very first board meeting, the statement of appointment of directors by shareholders, and the statement of consent to act as director. And finally, it sets you up with all the legally required company registers. Think of these as the official logs of your company.
Like who owns what, who runs things.
Precisely. The register of members, register of shares, the SCR, that's the significant controllers register of directors, and the register of company secretary.
Wow, okay. That is a comprehensive starter kit. Seems like it covers all the initial record keeping you'd need. The package also mentions a first-year company secretary service. That's right. It's included at a discounted rate for the first year, HK $1,255.
And what does that service actually do during the year?
Well, the company secretary, as we said, is vital for compliance with the company's ordinance. So this service covers things like handling any changes to your registered office or business address,
Okay.
managing director appointments or changes in their details, maintaining all those company registers we just listed.
Right. Keeping them up to date.
Exactly. And providing ongoing guidance on your legal duties. They also act as your designated representative for that SCR compliance, the Significant Controllers Register.
Okay.
And importantly, this fee also covers providing your registered office and business address for that first year.
So they're really acting as your compliance guide, not just a filing service.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Navigating the rules.
Okay, the last bit of that initial HK $8,000 fee is for customer due diligence, CDD. Sounds important, but maybe a bit unclear for some. It's absolutely crucial. The CDD fee is HK $1,200, and it covers procedures that are legally required under Hong Kong's anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing ordinance.
Ah, the AML stuff.
Exactly. As a licensed provider, Prepdy has to do this. It's not optional. It reflects Hong Kong's commitment to fighting financial crime,
Makes sense. What does it involve, practically?
It means verifying the identity and address
Yeah.
for all the key people, directors, shareholders, and the UBOs, the ultimate beneficial owners.
The people who really own or control it.
That's right. It also involves background checks, assessing the risk profile of the people and the business itself, and screening against things like sanctions lists and PAPIs, politically exposed persons, people in prominent public roles who might carry a higher risk for things like bribery or corruption.
I see.
And it's worth pointing out, if you have a really complex ownership structure or maybe involve jurisdictions seen as higher risk, they might need to give you a separate quote for more in-depth checks.
That sounds reasonable. More complexity, more work involved in checking. Okay, so someone's ready to go. What info do they actually need to give Prepdy to kick things off?
Right, the specifics. You need your proposed company names, Chinese and English, remembering those required endings limited and dude.
Got it.
You need to decide on the total number of shares for the company and how they'll be allocated among the shareholders.
Okay, share structure.
Yep. And then the essentials. Clear copies of passports and ID cards for all shareholders and directors, plus their current home addresses.
Pretty standard ID stuff then. And what's the actual process like? How fast can this happen? The document says about a week.
Yeah, the timeline is generally around 1 week, which is quite efficient.
That is quick.
So first, you give Prepdy all that information in the documents we just mentioned. Then they'll set up an online video call for identity verification. It's a security step.
Okay, secure verification.
After that, Prepdy prepares everything and submits it to the company's registry. Once the company is officially incorporated, usually within that week time frame, they send you the incorporation documents and any forms needing signatures electronically.
So you sign online.
You sign electronically and send them back. While that's happening, they prepare the physical company kit, that green box.
Ah, the green box.
Yep. Once they get your signed forms back, they ship the kit and any other relevant documents out to you.
About a week start to finish for the incorporation itself. That's impressive for a major jurisdiction. Okay, company formed, great. But often, the next big challenge is getting a bank account, right?
Oh, absolutely. That could be a major hurdle, especially for international clients in Hong Kong.
And Prepdy offers help with that, too, for a separate fee, the document says.
Yes, they do. There's a service fee of HK $8,000 specifically for assisting with opening a Hong Kong bank account.
Now, let's be clear. They can't guarantee success, can they? The bank makes the final call.
That's a crucial point. The decision is 100% the bank's. Hong Kong banks are notoriously thorough with their due diligence.
Right.
But Prepdy's help can be really valuable here. They know the process, they know what banks look for, and they can help present your application properly. It can save a lot of time and frustration.
So what do they actually do for that fee?
They help you gather and prepare all the required documents. They act as a liaison with the banks. And importantly, they usually approach multiple banks at once.
Oh, that's smart. Hedging your bets.
Exactly. Increases the chances of success. They'll submit the applications for you and even help schedule the necessary meetings with the bank managers.
So they're like your experienced guide through that banking maze. What sort of documents do the banks typically ask for? Sounds like it could be a mountain of paperwork.
It can be quite extensive, yeah. Especially if you already have a related business elsewhere.
Okay, what if you do?
Then you'll likely need things like the incorporation certificate, business license, articles of association, shareholder register, director register, all for that existing company.
Right.
Plus, typically the last 3 months of bank statements for that business, some recent supplier contracts, maybe 5 or so from the last 3 months.
Wow.
About 5 recent supplier invoices, 5 recent client invoices, and maybe 5 recent shipping or logistics documents if you're dealing with physical goods.
That's a lot of proof of activity.
It is. And here's a really key detail. The banks often want to see alignment. They might look for at least one amount on a supplier invoice and one on a client invoice that clearly matches a transaction on those bank statements you provide.
Ah, connecting the dots, showing the money flow is real. What if you don't have an existing company? Are you stuck?
Not necessarily. It might still be possible. You could potentially use your past personal work experience and provide documents related to that to support your application. It depends on the bank and your specific situation.
Okay, so there are options. And that strategy of applying to multiple banks at once, that sounds very practical. Saves you doing it sequentially, right?
Absolutely. Prepdy uses a consistent document set and applies to several banks simultaneously. It saves you, the client, a huge amount of time and effort repeating the process and logically increases the odds of getting an account approved somewhere. They handle that initial outreach and follow-up.
Okay, great. So we've covered getting set up and the crucial bank account step. What about after year one? What are the ongoing costs and requirements? People sometimes forget about those.
That's a really important point to factor in. Ongoing compliance is key.
So what's involved?
Well, first, you need to renew that company secretary service annually. Prepdy's fee for this renewal is HK $4,200 per year.
And that covers.
It covers quite a bit. Filing the mandatory annual return, the government fee for that, is actually included within Prepdy's fee here. It also covers handling any changes to your company details during the year, maintaining those statutory registers.
Keeping everything current.
Right. Providing ongoing compliance advice, acting as your designated representative for the SCR, and continuing to provide the registered office and business address for the next year.
Okay. Anything else included in that renewal?
Yes, there's also an annual customer due diligence compliance check needed. Similar to the initial setup, if your structure is complex or involves higher risk places, there might be a separate quote for that annual CDD check.
Got it. So that HK $4,200 covers a lot of the essential annual admin and compliance. What other recurring costs are there?
You also have to renew your business registration certificate directly with the government each year. That's currently HK $2,200.
Okay, direct government fee.
Yep. Then you have accounting and audit fees. These aren't fixed. They'll depend on your company's turnover, how many transactions you have, and how complex the audit is.
So you get a quote based on your activity.
Exactly. Usually after your first year of trading, you'll send your transaction records to their accountants, and they'll give you a specific quote for the accounting and the mandatory audit.
Mandatory audit, right. What else?
Finally, there's the annual filing of the employer's return for salaries and pensions.
Even if you have no employees.
Yes, you still file it. If you have 0 employees, you just tick a box saying no employees.
Yeah.
Simple. But if you do have employees in Hong Kong and you want Prepdy to handle preparing and submitting that return, that's a separate service and would need its own code.
Okay, so a predictable base cost for the secretary and business registration, then variable costs for accounting audit depending on business size, plus potential costs if you have employees.
That sums it up well.
And the document mentions Prepdy can help with other things, too, beyond these packages.
Yes, they just note that they're open to discussing any other specific needs or requests you might have that aren't covered in their standard offerings.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've really gone through the nuts and bolts of setting up and running a Hong Kong limited company, specifically looking through the lens of Prepdy services. We covered the initial setup, the costs, the crucial and sometimes tricky bank account opening process, and importantly, those ongoing annual requirements.
Yeah, it seems like they offer a pretty structured path through what can definitely feel like a complex system.
It does. The value seems to be in streamlining it all, handling that compliance burden, and giving you a hand with those tough parts like the bank account.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Especially useful, I'd imagine, if you're not based in Hong Kong yourself and aren't familiar with all the local rules and procedures.
Makes sense. So here's the final thought for you, the listener. Considering this kind of structured process, the support available, what new possibilities could setting up a framework like this in Hong Kong unlock for your business ideas or investments? Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.